From the early settlements in the Chao Phraya Basin to today, Baker and me and Phongpachit trace a world of Mandarin nobles and unfree peasants who were transformed by colonialism, the expansion of the rice frontier, the fields, the paddies, and the immigration of traders, laborers from southern China and Guangzhou. They examine how the monarchy managed to found the foundation of a nation state at the end of the 19th century and how urban nationalists, ambitious generals, communist rebels of such, and business politicians competed to take through the 20th century. They tracked Thailand's economic charges and changes through the highs and lows of an economic boom, globalization, and the evolution and evolution of the mass. So, draw on the popular culture, including press novelty, and together the books and magazines of Cambridge University Press and their history. The list of preferences and prefaces. History was invented for a nation state. It was a tendency to imagine the false unity of a self same national subject and evolving through time through prasnenajatwara. All too easily, the notion becomes a nation, and it's something natural that always existed but was only properly realized in a nation state. In reaction against this tendency, historians today prefer to write about people, things, ideas, localities, regions, or the globe, anything but the nation, or else they will write reflective histories that will not reflect the whole and the interplay between the nation and the production of its own history and a library. The approach adopted here is to make the career of a nation state explicitly focused on the history and stories. One of the main themes of this book is how the idea of the nation and the monarchy is the machinery of a nation state where they were established in Thailand. So now different social forces try to make use of it by reinterpreting the nation meant by seeking control or influence to use the state power. The second major theme in the evolution of the social forces involved are after the introductory chapter, and the chapters alternate between 0 and 1. Through the division is rough and rigid. The publisher wants the books in this series to be accessible to a white readership, not too longer overloaded with academic referencing. Our policy has been to limit notes of the source and reading cites major public works that have been published in modern Thai. In Thailand, the role has had a huge amount of even more evolving existing unpublished theses and Thai and War and Prejudice. Our independence on these works should be easily recognizable by the authors and their experts. Some of the most important are G, and another one is Strasati, Yakha Guru Namo. Davi and Pachan, Shaninda and Pokshom, Prapit, and Trinaya. The book was written in Thailand but hosted in Brazil. Indispensable help was so for portrayed and betrayed by the University Archives of Bangkok and Patna. Note on the 14th edition of this added new chapter of Turbulence. Since 2005, over 100 editions have been made to this text, and royal scholars have been seeking out new ways to infiltrate the mantra, Jataka Maga coin and considerable po. So, in this Pivi Prem, Tinasal hold becomes the Prime Minister of Public Affairs, and the artist is known as the Seafood Collar. In this collection of pearls, to come up with a painting, I don't start with a particular theme or concept in mind. It depends more and the inspiration at the spur of the moment, coming from anything such as people's activities, nature, objects, places, and a snip of conversation between my own thoughts and feelings suddenly with seeing a picture of image flare. Then the process of making the painting and leaving out the elements which I don't like and using those which I add to see. People in Thailand have been demanding my democracy, and for some time, since 2003, I've been moving grow and stronger color-coded political division. I am interested. The politics are the same as ever, flowing through the newspapers, television, and they're televised as a democracy, like flooding gates. With that thought, a scene instantly popped into my mind. Democracy monument floating in the sea. I sketched out the idea, but the pigeon was holding the master to the egg that was laid. That made the crab meaning a kapkun ka, prawn, shell, fish. I left out any stalls of deck chairs and not only reading umbrellas to set the scene. And if the sunbathers were clouded in the mind, more lively if so to be unclothed. So the regulars are walking down the beach and enjoying the looks down Democracy Lane. The sand, but they're more interested in the monument itself, disguised as a banana plantain tree. The sunbathers, they're not bothering anyone and infringing on anyone's rights by showing off, just lying there, observing and absorbing the vitamins. In truth, it's a comparison between democracy and food, and specifically the near coast areas of Chonburi, and seafood is so great. Everyone likes eating. And shellfish, deep brown flew, and Chapter 1 before Bangkok. The name Thailand was invented in 1939, as I'm aware. The country is described formerly called Siam and had been defined by borders drawn between 1905 and 1906. Its capital in Bangkok has been founded, and succession of early cities such as Ayutthaya described in the great ports of Asia by the sea, stretching from Persia to China in a political economic hinterland. And the Society of Hinterlanders was involved in the Grinch story. Tropical, subtropical, floptropican. It clustered city states, societies, and organized around the personal ties of service and an era of warfare between the 13th and the 16th century saw the emergence of a powerful militaristic knowledge group called the Freemason Laborers. After 1600, warfare slackened the Siam Enter for the peace of age and prosperity. Ayutthaya became a major node of Asian trade. The kings invested in the profits of the new obsolete idea of a century itself. The kings invested the profits, and once again they were loosening. People in Chao Phraya Basin and mainland Southeast Asia were fighting among themselves and subdividing the regions like the fingers on a hand. The plains between these ranges are heated to tropical numbers and in temperature means. While five great rivers carry snowmelt from the basin of the mainland in Asia mountains, the heights of them's and morning, good morning, they say, the region for 4 or 6 months in heavy rainfall. High temperatures are plentiful, and the moisture in vegetation is very thick, deciduous, and no, merging into tropical 4,000 years ago, dense mangroves along the coast. In the past, many species found this a much better habitat. They weren't happy with the monkeys and the deer. The human population remained sparse until it wasn't. There are traces of hunter gatherers joining the mountain caves about 180,000 years ago, and the Middle Age settlements were each sited and raised above this node. The people grew rice, they kept cattle, and dogs continued to hunt and gather in the forest below. Archaeologists suspect that new agriculture, metalworking, and domestic animals were introduced, and languages were now called the Mon Khmer. They probably spread along or two inland and unplayed plant plains with the plantains mentioned above. From around the last century BCE, these people had trade contracts with India that were not followed. They brought eventualities and evil plans upon the Arabian settlers, stretching from the Lower Chaw Phraya to Black Forest, South Germany. The farmers became experts at trapping the greenhouse gas. Rulers marshaled this labor, and along the Indian ideas with urban living, construction, religion, statecraft, so it created the magnificent capital of Abu Dhabi in tandem with the app. So centuries went by, and this early monk marriage tradition was anchored in nothing but the coast and spread inland. A second flow of people and culture came from the north through the hills. The group of languages also known as Thai probably originated among peoples who lived south of the Yangtze River between the Ha and the Ho Ho Ho. As the Han were Hanning, they knew that the control of China's South Khun was to be protected by the high valleys. Then, over many of a century, the Brahmaputra Valley was welcoming to the Guangxi interiors. They probably took some of the expertise in growing rice with the water flow from the mountain streams. Certainly, they chose to settle, and the techniques could be put into good use. They may have also acquired acquirements and required requirements. Other coexisted with the farmer warrior elite Plu and adopted the Thai language and gradually lost its mind. The Thai was settled in the Brain and the Broad River Basin only around Mekong. They did not move along the river itself, but also over low watersheds into the foothills around. They drifted into relativity and they paused initially. Here, they could still site their settlements at foot and use the drowning, flowing down of cultivation eventually. Probably they coexisted with earlier inhabitants, but I have no proof for such a statement. Eventually, the Thai language, not known as Thai, became dominant in the Chao Phraya, and the language itself suggests various groups. They blended into an area society, and this has absorbed my grammatical rules and syntactical principles from my ancestors upon and whilst. Chinese settlers were present, and the timings of the people movements and language shifts are unknown. The first known written Thai was occurring, and furthering the south on the plain, all records were transmitted and commanded prestige. Inscriptions, law codes, and itineraries were worked into Booking.com. Even though state inflows for the popularization of this and that were the forests that were cleared for the predators, including the germs of malaria and other jungle fevers. The long hot season made survival difficult anywhere, and sparse settlements, most of the region remained unsorry. This sparseness meant that there were always spruce trees somewhere on the globe. Malay seafarers from the archipelago beached on the coast of the peninsula and settled Chinese farmlands. The Korat Plateau began to, and they were growing a lot of it. Hill dwellers filtered into the highlands, nudged by the southward expansion of the Chinese. The sparseness of population also underlay trading, riding, war, needing a certain scale of the forest and predators at bay. Leaders needed people to walk the walk and talk the talk. In early maritime trade, they were imported from China and the Victorian armies that returned home with files on certain individuals. Artisans were especially prized. Ordinary war prisoners were used as personal retainers. Settled pioneer colossal lands with an increased number available for recruitment. Down to the 19th century, some communities specialized as ribbers and ribbon selling loopholes. Areas of settlement were separated from the Muang and other by stretches of mean thought. City states, the model evolved. Rather than spreading to the Zhao and the Zhou, little too late, animals and disease, some have argued that the sparsity of not at all land good for fertility. Location was highly prized in the early stages, and acting as a settlement itself, villages managed to land a holding in a community. Muang Fei, which supplied irrigation for rice growing, and later was purchased, and I might not have access to it at all. These settlements that appeared along the rivers and lowlands of the high coast differences, the flavored site on the meander. The Muang, the most sail of martial prowess. Few places developed into large cities over time, and probably because in the legendary early history books of Sukhothai, the world population was migrating to the moon. The whole population carried a victorious army along. Sri Taramat Chronicle is reportedly founded deserted and founded again. Many town sites as Chao Phraya Basin were abandoned and moved along.